All right, man, breaking news. The consolidation of power just doesn't stop. January 2022 has seen another massive gaming acquisition. This time, it's Sony purchasing Bungie, the makers of Destiny, for $3.6 billion. Yes, billion with a B. So Bungie, the studio that made the original Halo and really helped catapult the Xbox to success, was purchased by PlayStation. Pretty wild stuff. Let's dive into the news. And yes, many people don't care about Destiny. There's already a lot of comments about that. So even if you don't play Destiny, it's still interesting news to pay attention to because it's yet another industry-shaking acquisition, whether you play their games or not. So, Sony head Jim Ryan said, and I quote, "We've had a strong partnership with Bungie since the inception of the Destiny franchise, and I couldn't be more thrilled to officially welcome the studio to the PlayStation family." This is, of course, not the biggest surprise, as Sony and Bungie have had a tight history of some exclusive or timed content through Destiny's whole lifespan. And believe it or not, of course, the big question is exclusivity. And it seems like Sony may be taking a different approach here, kind of at least coming out of the gate and addressing the question. They've just come right out and said Bungie will in fact remain a multi-platform studio which can and will, and I quote, self-publish and reach players wherever they choose to play. That's from Sony's words, and Bungie seems aligned on their end. They said on whether their games will be exclusive to PlayStation straight up, no, we want the worlds we are creating to extend to anywhere people play games. We will continue to be self-published, creatively independent, and we will continue to drive one unified Bungie community. It's also worth noting that in these announcements, it has been said that any of the stuff in the works, like all the Witch Queen stuff and the roadmap, none of that will be affected. So if you're a Destiny player, you got nothing to worry about right now. Now, exclusivity, of course, we appreciate them just coming out and addressing it and not leaving us like up to like, will they, won't they? You know, I do still think actions speak louder than words. But to quote Christopher Dring, the person behind the original GamesIndustry.biz report, he says, "The motivation behind Sony's acquisition of Bungie is to help boost their own abilities to make live service multi-platform games. Equally, Sony unlocks the potential to Bungie to strengthen its technical capabilities and the prospect of taking its games to movies and TV." And according to him, who did the reporting and talked to Jim Ryan, this deal was in the works for at least the past 5 or 6 months. So of course, first reactions are all over the place. Of course, the continued reservation of the fact that all these companies are just buying up smaller companies. There's also indifference from people who don't really play Destiny or anything like that. But some first reaction by Destiny players could potentially be a little bit of disappointment. Bungie reporting to itself did make a difference. It was a pretty historic moment for Bungie to leave Activision Blizzard and go off on their own. And players really noticed a difference with Bungie completely behind the wheel of their own ship. It wasn't perfect. If you talk to any Destiny person, there's still plenty of things to complain about, but still. So now them jumping back behind a corporate full big ownership, is that going to change things? Of course, these statements say they're going to remain independent and untouched. And on the flip side, with recent acquisitions by Microsoft, they seem like they're doing a good job leaving the studios alone. So maybe this is just how these companies are going to operate now. And to go back to a bit more of what Jim Ryan is saying at GamesIndustry.biz, he said, "We are starting to go multi-platform. You've seen that. We have an aggressive roadmap with live services and the opportunity to work with and particularly learn from the brilliant and talented people from Bungie. That is going to considerably accelerate the journey we find ourselves on. We have an aggressive roadmap with live services." So you might ask yourself, is this Sony's big move into live services? On the one hand, yes, probably, absolutely, in some way, shape, or form. That is where a lot of the industry is going. I think that's definitely part of it. I think what we talked about also is Sony kind of going into an all-encompassing future in movies and TVs and live service games and more just continuous revenue streams, whatever that may be. But also in a lot of ways, they could be betting on talent, betting on intellectual property. They want to be behind the money machine for the people coming up with cool new ideas and cool new games, to be frank. Just seeing the first reactions from people working at Sony and working at Bungie, they're all talking up excitement about being able to do new things. Now notice that a lot of them are talking about things, not just games in particular. So I think this is all coming full circle, but I also think it's going to be a couple years before we actually see what the heck this is going to mean. What we're also trying to get at is that, like, at first glance to the layman, it might really seem like Sony isn't getting the greatest deal here, right? Because they bought this company. But according to them, they're still going to let the company put out their games wherever. I think it's going to be revealed that there's a bit more to it. You know, they're not stupid. Or at least I would like to assume anybody who decided to spend billions of dollars definitely thought it through. And I think it's safe to say that they do. One thing we just like to point out, with them being purchased by Sony, maybe that means there's more money for new IP or new intellectual property. That would be cool. Did Bungie just essentially secure funding for their next big game, their non-Destiny game? You know they've probably been chomping at the bit to make other things for a while now, and there's always been little murmurs here and there, so maybe this really solidifies that. Maybe they now have full carte blanche access to do whatever they want in the future, which, gotta say, that's probably a good thing. It's also worth pointing out, is this a response to Xbox buying Activision? I see that question pop up a lot, saying, ha, that's right, Sony just got one up on Xbox, man. Unfortunately for people thinking that way, it doesn't really work like that. These deals do take quite a long time. 5-6 months in the works. Also, Herman Hulst of Sony also tweeted a picture saying that they met a long time ago to start setting this up. So it's not really like this person bought this thing, so now these guys went and bought that thing. Like, at least not now, at least not with this specific acquisition. But another little takeaway is that with that gamesindustry.biz interview and report, Jim Ryan said that they should expect more when it comes to further PlayStation acquisitions. So of course, everybody's thinking, oh boy, what is Sony gonna buy next? Could literally be anything. I have been surprised so many times in the last 2 years with what these companies are acquiring. So really at this point, anything can happen. But it's still just interesting news because Bungie is now at this point a historic studio. They've been around for quite a long time now. And really, honestly, if anything, they made some PC games back in the day that were super old school and really cool, and I'd love to see them bring that back, but that's just me. I also think this is a good opportunity, a convenient time to finally announce that gameranx has been acquired by Atari. We look forward to continuing our partnership with Atari and our ability to continue to make videos independently and without Atari's oversight. I'm sorry, this is a terrible joke. I'm gonna stop, but I do want to hear from you guys in the comments what you think about this. If you like following this inside baseball stuff, you know, this gaming news stuff, what do you think is the deal here? Creative freedom, a good thing? Do you think they're actually gonna get it? The exclusivity move, do you think it's bold? Do you think they're still eventually gonna actually take these things exclusive and not just let them publish everywhere? Let us know your thoughts. We definitely want to hear you. Now, if you enjoyed this video, maybe you learned something, maybe we brought some new insight for you. First, just know that everything we mentioned will be linked in the description down below. If you were informed, clicking the like button's all you got to do, man. It really helps us out and we would appreciate it. If you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day and sometimes we react to crazy news like this. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.